see here on screen the export to Excel spreadsheet that we created in the last video. It's currently sorted in ascending order from the earliest date to the last. We want to sort that in descending date, but first I'm going to add some headings. Date, open, high, low, close, and volume. I generally like to make my headings look nice, so I'm going to make them bold and center them and give them a little bit of color. Now I'm going to sort. So the way you do that is you select Data, Sort, and Excel automatically selects the entire range that I have on screen. I'm going to sort date in descending order. Next, I'm going to add some headers for calculations that I'm going to do. I'm going to calculate the range, the gap, and then a couple of things that I call: is today's low less than yesterday's low? Is today's high greater than yesterday's high? You'll see how we use those in just a little bit. Now I need to add the formulas for those. The range formula is today's high minus today's low, and the gap is today's open minus yesterday's close. I need to copy that formula to the entire range, and then similarly create the formula for these next two columns. Now this one is these two are logical columns, so I'm going to say if today's low is less than yesterday's low, put a 1 in this column, otherwise put a 0. And for the high, if today's high is greater than yesterday's high, put a 1, otherwise put a 0. Copy those to the entire range. Now we want to add some totals. So I'm going to add 4 rows up above my header column. I'm going to call those count, percent, filtered count, and average. And I've got to add the formulas for those. So my count is just simply the count of the number of records in the entire range. I'm not going to add anything for percent yet. My filtered count is going to use the subtotal calculation for filtered count. For information on the subtotal function, just check your Excel help file. So at this point, they're the same number. I'm not going to add anything for average, but I am going to add some formulas for range and for gap. Now for the range, my count again is going to be the subtotal function, subtotal of the entire range. My percent is going to be the subtotal divided by the total count. My filtered count is going to be my subtotal divided by the filtered count. And the average is going to use the subtotal function again as well for the entire range. I'm going to copy those formulas above gap. All right. Now I'm going to add a different kind of formula for these two today's high and today's lows columns. This is still a subtotal formula, but it's going to use a different function. That's the sum function. It's going to be for the same range again. And I'm going to copy it to the total high field. And I'm still going to use the same values for the same formulas for the percent and the filtered count. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is add some filters to this. So I highlight my header row and I select Data, Filter, Auto Filter, and it adds these little selector bars here. I know from previous work that the average gap on the ES over this time frame is 8 points up or down. I'm going to filter out all the days that have gaps less than 0 or greater than 8 points. So I'm going to show gaps that days that have a gap of less than 8 and days that have a gap of greater than 0. Now it recalculates. It shows me that 42% of my days have that particular kind of gap up. And the average gap on those days is a little over 3 points. On those days, 34% of those days, today's low is lower than yesterday's low. So that's giving me some tradable information. If I have a gap less than 8 points, a gap up less than 8 points, I know I've only got a 14% chance that today's low will be less than yesterday's low. That's tradable information. Let's look at it another way. Let's look at the gaps down of 8 points or less. So I'm going to look at gap of less than 8 and greater than minus 8. All right, 35% of our days are like that. When that happens, when I have a gap down of more than 0 points but less than 8 points down, there's only a 13% chance that today's high will be greater than yesterday's high. Again, this is tradable information. The last thing I want to show you is a spreadsheet I built using the same kind of calculations and same kind of techniques. This spreadsheet has open, high, low, and close data for the overnight session, the regular session, the first hour of the day, and the last hour of the day. And I've created a number of filters and a number of calculations based on highs and lows and opens and closes, all of which can give me tradable information. So this is the kind of thing you can do, exporting data from TradeStation into Excel. I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at the address you see there on your screen. Thanks for watching.